So the topic is building an accessible component library for Android and iOS. I'm going to take it a step forward and make it work for web as well. Pretty long topic. So I've made it simpler. I have made it building a component library for everyone, as in accessible for everyone and for everywhere on all three platforms. Going forward, let me introduce myself. I'm Sanket. I'm a software engineer at Geekians and also a founder. I go by the Twitter handle Sanket Sahu. Uh, yeah, and there we are. Yeah, I wish all of you join me here in Bangalore uh, because physical conferences are different. And Bangalore is like blooming right now. I have got some pictures from Twitter, and this is how it looks like right now. It's all pink and yellow in the city. So if it was a physical conference, I would have gotten to meet all of you. Anyway, so building a component library for everyone and for everywhere. So creating a component usually involves like these steps. The first one is we write the markup, then we do the styling, and we add interactions like handle events, and then do some action against the events, and then handle states, and the last and the most important thing that most of us don't really care about is about accessibility. So let's see all of them in detail. So let's say we have to build a checkbox component or a checkbox and a label next to that with some text. So the markup would look like this. Uh, we'll create a component and return a label, and then inside that we'll have input type checkbox and then some text next to that. And the next obvious thing is we would like to style it a bit. We have a lot of options because the styling is not really a part of React. So we have to figure it out ourselves. Using vanilla CSS, write some class name, add some property definition and values. And then we have other solutions like preprocessor like Sass, less, and then the newly adopted thing, which is made famous by Tailwind, is utility classes. We throw in a bunch of utility classes and then a style right inside our markup. And then we have CSS and JS options like style components. We can create components that has styles in it right in our JavaScript files or TypeScript files. But to keep it simple, let's just use vanilla CSS for styling. So I'm going to add like a couple of class names. The label has a class name, and then the span, that's an empty span next to that, which we are going to use with some, say, after and before CSS pseudo classes to style it. And the CSS file would look like this. And this is a lot of work if you want to make like switch or anything that has that is like 100% customizable in styling in HTML. And the next obvious thing is to add interaction. You want to know when the user has changed the checkbox, and then show an alert box or do something. And then you would add some states. Like here, I've used use state and checked and set check property. And on change of that, I'm setting that set check. And yeah, so these are the four steps. And the fifth one is pretty important. You have to it's our responsibility to make it accessible for a wide range of users. It includes like people with disability. It includes keyboard interaction, like make sure that when we press tabs or when we press like spacebar, it toggles the check and uncheck value of checkbox. And if we have like multiple inputs or multiple elements in there, tab index and shift tab should work fine. Not only that, accessibility also includes setting the correct contrast ratio for your colors. So if you're using, say, white, you shouldn't use something like light gray that is almost close to invisible for few people. And yesterday, Sid mentioned about how a few people don't really like, or they have some issues with animations, and there is this motion sickness, right? So accessibility also includes that, and this is a very important thing that all the developers and even if you are a product owner should care about it. So To add accessibility in HTML, we have some ARIA props, like we have input ARIA hyphen checked and ARIA hyphen labeled by. These are a couple of ARIA props that we can pass to uh, make it work like a checkbox. It is already a checkbox because we have input type is equal to checkbox. But say if you want, say, a custom div or a span to behave like a checkbox, you can use these ARIA properties to make it work like a checkbox, right? And when we have to build it for mobile, we are going to use React Native over here. So the first step is definitely going to be the markup. We have a pressable component, and then inside we have a view, which is equivalent to div. And then we have text, which is equivalent to paragraph or span. And then on the output on the right side, we have the text. And then we're going to introduce an icon because React Native doesn't have a checkbox. So we are going to use material community icons from React Native vector icons. And we have some checkbox mark there. We're going to add some style so that it comes in a row. So view style, styles.wrapper would have something like flex direction row. And then standard stuff with text, some padding, and font weight. And then we handle the on press behavior of the pressable component, add a callback function, uh, and add checked, set checked, and handle those things. The accessibility in React Native is a bit different compared to React, and we have accessibility role and accessibility state that we can do it. And as we do it, I have a video on the right side. So
Talk back on. Not checked checkbox, I agree. Checked. Tap to
I'm not sure if it is audible, but if you do all those things, it becomes accessible by screen reader. And you also get things like if you uh, press spacebar with a keyboard, it would actually check and uncheck. So now, if we want to go ahead and make it work for web as well, I think in the last talk, Muskin explained like how we can use React Native web and map all the APIs of React Native to make it work on the web as well. So we can do it, and we can do the same checkbox for both the platforms. But there are a few areas that we need to take care of. Uh, and a big shout out to Expo. They are doing a great job on bringing all the three platforms closer. So this is our dream component, like checkbox is checked, and then we have some value on change and some text. Uh, and I would love this to work on all three platforms: web, iOS, and Android. Most of the things work if you just use view and text and a combination of them and style them. It would just work fine. And that's what we have here on the screen. This is custom checkbox UI. That is a combination of view and icon and text, and it would just work fine if you put it inside a React Native app or a React app with an alias of React Native to React Native Web. But when it comes to accessibility, we have a few differences that we need to take care of. For example, if you are building, if you want to use a real checkbox on the web, then you would use the input tag, and that doesn't really ship with React Native. So what we do is that we hide it in a wrapper div, and then we present our custom checkbox UI, and we make sure that that is wrapped in a label so that wherever we tap, that thing is accessible. And pressable component with accessibility role would just work fine, and we handle the state and do it. So this example covers only a part of accessibility. Like there are a few things that is not handled, say the inactive state or the disabled state or the error state, uh, and a bunch of other things that comes in the web ARIA spec or the mobile ARIA spec. Uh, and this is only a simple example of checkbox, right? If we do a drop down button, if we do a select box, then it gets really complex. And something like tabs and accordion, as Satya explained in the panel, that adding accessibility for tabs was a difficult piece for him, right? So to solve all these things, we have built a library called React Native Aria. React Native Aria has its root in React Aria. This is by Adobe, and the team is led by Devon. And React ARIA is a set of hooks that works with React, and you use those hooks, and it makes the underlying component accessible if you spread the props, spread the output of that hook to some particular component. I'll show you an example. And in collaboration with Devon and Adobe, we have built React Native ARIA. This is a set of React hooks to build accessible React Native design system, and it also works perfectly fine with React Native Web. There are a few areas that is still in development in React Native itself and in React ARIA. So things are somewhat supported, but we are targeting to have a more complete support. And this is working fine. You can go ahead and try it out. So the previous example would change to something like this. So we have use checkbox that is available in React Native ARIA. You get input props, and it also takes input ref because it works on the low level DOM element. And for platform OS web, we are going to pass that and spread it on the input element, and also get the ref back to the input ref. And the same thing is done to the pressable component. So here it's the pressable component, and in on the web, it's the input type is equal to checkbox. And we're not passing type is equal to checkbox because that's coming from the input props. And we have conditionals inside use checkbox that make sure that it works, it passes down the correct props to web and mobile. And yeah, so we have used it and built a lot of components using React Native ARIA. So on a high level, we have to take care of a bunch of things when we are building components, not just those 5 things, uh, uh, like theming, styling, web ARIA, React Native ARIA. Have to make it responsive. We have to take care of platform guidelines, design system, and web and mobile support, performance, and whatnot. So we have invested a lot of time into all these different aspects of building components or component library, and we are clubbing all those things and shipping it in the next version of native base. So native base version 3 right now, it's in alpha, and we are going to uh, work for another couple of weeks or so to announce the beta launch on our website. And it's available on alpha.nativebase.io. And so it's a mobile first accessible components for React Native and web. And it's based on utility first, or utility props, and a bunch of other things that I'm going to talk about. So the checkbox component that I showed in the previous slide can be imported from the next version of native base. And we pass in is checked, on change, and a few other props to make it look good. Uh, a little bit of background story. So native base version 2 was released back in 2016, 17, somewhere around that. And we started working on the version first and second version, first version of native base right when uh, React Native came for Android. And we have seen a lot of adoption in the community. A few numbers: we have about 40,000 downloads per week. We are about to reach 15,000 GitHub stars, and we have around 200 contributors, and there are over 50,000 dependent projects on native base, and these are all public projects. Uh, there must be a lot more like private projects as well. So that's going on with native base version 2. And so in the next version, we have uh, worked on style system, which brings in the philosophy of tailwind css or utility props to React Native or React, and accessibility with definitely React Native ARIA, and a few other things. Let's see each of them in detail. So style system, on the right side, you can see that we have view and text, but instead of taking something like styles dot say heading or wrapper, and text taking some styles, we have props like p is equal to 1 and then bg as blue. In text, we have red dot 100. So this is possible uh, to build using a style system, and it inside a style system it uses some css and js. We have used styled components, and that maps well to React Native as well. So we get all these props very similar to Tailwind CSS. And then we have accessibility. We have built all the components using React Native ARIA, and all the components are accessible. We have a rich component library. This is just a sneak peek. We are working on making it more beautiful and compatible with most of the design system. And that's why right now it's in alpha. We have got the framework right, but working on the final detailing pieces of each one of them. And definitely it's themable. You can go ahead and add your own variants, and you choose your color scheme and make it use it as a base to build your own design system on top of it. And most important, dark mode. We have dark mode, and I think we devs care much more about dark mode than anything else, and that's why my tweet got really viral. MS-DOS was dark mode by default. And yeah, so you can use dark mode with a hook called use color mode value, and then pass in like both the values that you want to use, one for the light mode, another for the dark mode, and then your design becomes uh, like supports both the types of modes. And then it's universal, works on all the three platforms. We are more or less there. The support for web is not 100% there, but I think in another couple of weeks or 3 weeks we'll reach somewhere, because this project has dependency on React Native Aria and also React Aria. But we are working with the team and making sure that it becomes the UI library that we can use going forward. So go ahead and check it out, alpha.nativebase.io. And yeah, here is a quick example how the code looks like when using native base version 3. uh, we have a box, and then we have an image has like rounded top height, and then we have a stack component. Stack has a heading and it has a text under it. So pretty declarative and straightforward. uh, we have like syntactic meaning with every particular component, and also it is highly customizable, just like Tailwind CSS. And we have built a lot of screens as a part of the experiment and UAT. And we are able to build like most of the screens without even the need of stylesheet.create or custom styles. And we are pretty happy with this approach. There are people, there is a bit of resistance in the community of these uh, like props or utility first ideology, but we are pretty happy. And it helps in finding the perfect balance between say a design system or going crazy with like really specific value. And yeah, this is another example of a Spotify clone that one of the interns did. And yeah, this is 100% native base version 3 based on utility props, no custom stylesheet.create. And the only the linear gradient that you see was used from Expo. Everything else was using native base version 3. So we have a lot on the roadmap. It's a lot of work that is already done and a lot more coming. We are working on doing a material design theme. That's an add-on, or maybe it'll come inherently that you can split and just use native base unstyled. So we are having internal discussions on that. We are going to explore animations, and also that's a part of community integrations too, and definitely more complete support for the web. Community integrations include Formic, React Hook Forms, Reanimated version 2, and related things that is in the React Native and React community. A huge shout out to the entire team for working in the past 5 to 6 months on the next version of Native Base. Special thanks to Ankur. He has worked really hard and he has led the team on the technical front. And then Himanshu, Gaurav, and everyone else on the team. Nishan especially worked on React Native Aria, so great work over there. And yeah, we have some more projects in and around React and React Native, a state management library called Sync State. We have a form library based on Mobux state tree called as Formsty. And then BuilderX and API Beats are some of the products that we have built in the no code space. And yeah, I'm looking forward to chat with you all. You can follow me on Twitter and get involved. I'm going to be available in the Q&A session tab, so feel free to reach out. Thank you so much.